everybody. Yeah, even though I'm a research support technician, I have nothing to do with the technical aspects of, especially of artificial intelligence. My background is in political science and also in design thinking. That is probably the most relevant part for the artificial intelligence. But today we will talk about artificial intelligence and citizens' participation, because this is our main topic of the research at the University of Luxembourg. We are focusing on participatory democracy. So that's why there is such a project as Luxembourg Platform for Participatory Democracy. What is this exactly? So first of all, it is a research project that became possible because of a collaboration agreement between the University of Luxembourg and the city of Dudelange. It's a city that is located in the south of the country, and that is very active in participatory democracy and democratic innovations in general. So the collaboration agreement was concluded in December 2020, and we started to develop our platform last year. So we're still in the development process. So the core of the platform is, of course, to have an online platform that collects all the knowledge about participatory practices in Luxembourg. But besides this, other missions of the platform is to develop the synergies. What does mean is to practically to unite all the actors that are working in Luxembourg and abroad on participatory democracy, and to disseminate the knowledge about best practices, about challenges, and what has been done so far in Luxembourg regarding these issues. Another mission of the platform is a collaboration with the city of Dudelange. On behalf of the university, we provide the advice and the assistance to the city in their practices of engaging citizens in the decision-making process. For example, this year we are setting up the first in Luxembourg participatory budget, which is developed by the city, and the university is taking a leading role in helping to set up this process. Another important part is, of course, research projects, so that I'll give you some examples of what are these research projects. And then another mission is also to promote training related to participatory democracy. For example, this May we will hold at the university the International Summer School for Participation and Democracy, together with other universities, for example, the University of Bordeaux, Laval, and with the international speakers. So why such a project? And why it is relevant, and why it is specifically relevant to Luxembourg? So first of all, of course, there is a growing demand in citizens' participation in Luxembourg, and even though it's not a new topic in some other countries, especially in Scandinavian countries, for Luxembourg it's still a new issue, and there are still many questions how to do it specifically in Luxembourg, taking into consideration that there are so many foreigners, multilingualism, so how to create the best practices that are relevant for Luxembourg specifically. There are several institutional initiatives that I'll give you some examples. And I think what is the most relevant also for our conference is, of course, the development and possibilities offered by the new technologies. And at the same time, such situations that we had with COVID, when, for example, we faced mainly online participation, so how also improve these processes and to give to citizens better opportunities to be involved in the decision-making process and the creation of governmental services, etc. This is part of our project, as I mentioned, is to have online platform. So we started from creating a website that is already existing in a testing regime, let's say. It's pldp.lu, you can already visit it. For the moment, it just has a description of the project as well as other projects that is under this umbrella of PLDP. Another important part for us is the interviews, so where you can find actors and academics, practitioners working on the relevant topics relevant to the participatory democracy, and to know more about the subject. So some examples of the projects that we are working on, it's Klima Bergeroth in Luxembourg. It's a big initiative of the government to create a citizen council that is working specifically on climate issues. And at the university, we are providing our support as well to set up this process and to evaluate the format and how it's going, if everything is going well or not. The other process we're involved in is Luxembourg in Transition. That is also about climate and environment. It's about new policies, new environmental policies and practices in Luxembourg, also a project by the government. Then we're also part of the international networks, such as Cost Actions, also specific to these topics. And there are various other projects, such as smart voting applications, and this is actually the project where the technology is involved, and Raphael is going to talk more about this example. E-petition in Luxembourg, a local autonomy index, etc. So you can, if you're interested, you can have a look on our website and to know more about this project. And so why artificial intelligence and citizen participation? Like in many other cases, citizens' participation is mainly using the algorithm, the processes of citizen participation of natural language processing to analyze the data, the input from citizens, to help the governments make better informed decisions, to save time and to produce necessary analysis of the data. So here just give you some the most common, I would say, examples of how it's used for classification, similarity, named entry recognition, summarization, and for several types of analysis, such as sentiment analysis, argument analysis, typology, etc. But there is still, of course, big room to use it more in a more efficient way, but at the same time there are several challenges as well, especially within the governments, how to introduce it in the existing workflow, and many others. And another interesting aspect that is actually citizens' participation in the artificial intelligence in helping co-create ethics and privacy rules for use of their data. So some suggest that this would be also a very important citizens' engagement in co-creating these rules and how the citizens' data should be used. Very big topic for us, as I already mentioned, is artificial intelligence and algorithms in the electoral period. And Raphael now will give more examples about our research on this and how it's used.
Thank you, Katja. So, again, thank you for inviting me. So that was an opportunity to give you a broader picture of what we're doing, because we are all at the university, but many of us are at the university, but we don't know really what each other is doing. So I thought it would be nice to have a 10-minute introduction about what is a PLDP about. And now I'm going to talk about, more specifically, about the usage, regulation of artificial intelligence in electoral period. And as we were dealing with cinema, I also wanted to deal with cinema, and I referred to this movie of Sergio Leone, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. Algorithm in electoral period. So I did my own movie. So I should start by saying that algorithms, as we said many times, are not intrinsically bad or good. It's like a gun. You can use it for good purpose and for bad purposes. And it's the same in electoral period. There are good usage of algorithm and bad usage of algorithm. But according to me, they are all ugly. I mean, meaning algorithm, it's difficult to read. They are quite opaque, so it's difficult to understand. So if you're not specialized really in numbers, algorithm could look ugly. So the objective of this presentation is first to define how online and social media have transformed the election and the genuine function of the election. We can be critical about the election per se, but it's true that the introduction of social media had a major changes in the way elections are organized. The second element, I will refer to some concrete proposals stemming from the Council of Europe. I was member of a group of the Council of Europe that aimed precisely at defining regulation or to provide recommendation to the member state of how elections should be organized in the future. So it's a form of formal regulation, but also a form of auto-regulation. And then third, I will refer to Smart Wählen. So Katja mentioned it before. It's a voting advice application, and I will come back later to what is a voting advice application that we developed in Luxembourg, and that I consider to be a good algorithm for the citizens. So it's a concrete example. And finally, I will give some basic reflection about how we should validate, elaborate algorithm in the future in electoral period based on the recommendation of the Council of Europe and on the concrete example of Smart Wählen. So as I said before, I refer to three main sources. The first one is the recommendation we elaborated at the Council of Europe, and it is a report called Recommendation of the Committee of Ministers to the Member State on Electoral Communication and Media Coverage in Election Campaigns. So it's going to be very concrete cases of recommendation. It's not, let's say, general discussion about how social media or algorithms should be transformed. It's extremely concrete recommendation. The second source of information is another project in which we are involved. It's called the Media Pluralism Monitor, and it is an international project that evaluates the media landscape based on 200 criteria in all the EU member states. And this project reviewed as four main as four main criteria, global criteria. We review the fundamental rights, the market plurality, so our media independent or not from the market, the political independence from the media, and the social inclusion. And here there are some criteria that are related also to social media, artificial intelligence. And finally, I will present you Smart Wählen that we developed in Luxembourg since 2013, and present you some of how it's working and the type of algorithm that is used for Smart Wählen. So let's start with the transformation of electoral communication through online platform. So there are three or four main elements. We will first insist on the increased role of the social media to inform citizens, the transformation of the technique used during electoral period, and the problem of absence of transparency and control of campaign expenditure. This one I will not develop, the danger involved in that. So we can first, when we are looking at the election, how they're organized nowadays in the last 10 years, there are some facts that we notice. First, the first fact is that the people increasingly rely on online platforms to access or to gain information in general, but about political information in particular. So this is the first fact. Second one, traditional political actors, parties, candidates, but new actors with political agendas, so it could be interest group or even individuals, use social media to campaign. So there are more and more actors involved in social media for political campaign. Third fact is that, as a consequence of that, electoral communication is increasingly online. We do not have, it was before in traditional media, in television, but increasingly now the communication is online. well, we got obviously open social media like Facebook. We got a lot of online campaign going on Facebook. And what is more dangerous, there also, if you look in India, there's a lot of political campaign that is done on WhatsApp. But the problem is that WhatsApp, it's closed group. It's not even public. So you cannot even see how the campaign is organized in closed group like WhatsApp group. Fourth fact is that more and more political advertisement is online. So parties, candidates prefer to do political advertisement online for the simple reason that it's cheaper. You have a greater control of what you're putting online, and it's more effective, as you're going to see, really to target certain type of population. So it's a much more effective tool. And last element I wanted to insist is that it's moving a lot. So social media, the way the social media are used and the type of social media that are used are not the same in time. We are really in front of a moving target. While Facebook tended to be and maybe still is a prominent social media for doing online campaign, we see that nowadays, you have seen now that the value of Meta went down, because for the first time we saw that there's been a decrease of user of Facebook, particularly among the younger population that prefer to use other media. And I've got students, and now they're starting doing work on Twitch. I must say I didn't know about Twitch. And they say, well, what, you don't know Twitch, but this is really the big media, the big important social media. Twitch is a social media coming from the gaming industry, and increasingly candidates and parties go on Twitch because they want to speak with these young gamers, and there's a lot of campaign going on Twitch. So it's moving a lot. It's difficult even to identify where is the campaign taking place. And then, as we know, there's been this transformation. Then there's been an important transformation of the technique used. Candidates and political parties and other actors are using a system of micro-targeting political messages that are based on a large amount of data, which means that each individual will receive different type of information from the same party. If you have a certain type of profiling, you will receive, different people will receive different type of information, even contradictory information from the same party or candidate. There are new actors, the data brokers, these are the actors that are accumulating all these specific individual data. This is organizations and companies that are aggregating this data and that sell them to the different political actors. And then there are bots, trolls, that are used also during the political campaign, and important influence from abroad, as we know that during the election in the US or the Brexit, they influence from abroad. Russian, it's proven, were very present in US campaign, and that we're using a lot of bots. And last element, online platform in itself, by the algorithm they're using, are important actors in itself, in the way they're moderating and in the way they're curating the different information that are provided. The problem, as we know, is, and we mentioned that before, it's that the algorithms are obscure and based essentially on commercial interest. Well, we all know that the idea of this algorithm is to keep you online, and they will provide you all the type of information you want as long as you stay online. So if you like tennis, you will have plenty of information about tennis, and the idea is to keep you online. So what are the dangers? First danger, based on that, is the danger of abuse of personal data, abuse of micro-targeting, abuse of bots, and of algorithms. So we see that this willingness to provide you all this specific information leads to a great amount of abuse, and that is very problematic abuse. Secondly, there is another danger, is that, and you all know that, is that there is a danger of segmentation of voters, meaning that they will just provide you the information you are interested in, and as a consequence, there's going to be a sort of polarization of opinion. You will not be confronted to a diversity of opinion. So that's another danger, leading to some form of sectarism. And we saw it also during the COVID period, people that think that they can be healed by drinking or not eating at all, or by drinking just juice. So that's another very important danger, and algorithms are playing a central role in that form of polarization and segmentation of voters. Another danger is that to attract your attention, the messages you will receive are based on emotional message, so that you want to create reaction for you. So the message and they want to keep you online. So there's a tendency that the message you're going to receive are essentially emotional messages, which implies that it will silence, if you want, we were talking about internal voices, it will silence your rational voice and a critical voice. These algorithms are trying to silence your critical, free spirit. And, well, there's the danger of disinformation. What are the information that are circulating the fastest online is the web, because maybe now they tend to have a greater control, but it's disinformation. There are studies showing that on Twitter, misinformation, disinformation, fake news were circulating 7 times faster than normal news, and the algorithm promoting this type of fake news because they are essentially more emotional and they attract more attention. Well, that's the danger. The problem, what is the main problem, is that social media, online platforms are not regulated or have a very limited regulation. Nothing to do with the type of regulation that we have in traditional or audiovisual media. So we are facing with a situation where there is an increasing usage of social media, but an absence of regulation of these media. Well, I think that there are also other dangers that we can not ignore and that are going to increase even more this danger, is the danger of what I call a metaversization of our environment and of deep fakes. So the usage of, now it was just written element that we had, but now we have the usage of deep fakes, which implies that we can have all this, the most awful science fiction scenario in the future if all our life is going to be online in the future, and also the political life is going to be increasingly online. It's going to be quite easy that instead of bots, we will have sort of fake figure of politicians, and we will not be able to recognize, is that a fake politician or a real politicians? And it's difficult to now imagine what are going to be the consequences of it, but what is sure is that this is a space that is not regulated, and the consequences of entering in a purely virtual space, for me, are terrible. We really have to be careful about it, but everything is going so fast. Second consequences that we know and that is already there, you're probably all aware of this notion of spiral of silence that was developed by Nele Neumann, the Schweigespirale. But the idea is quite simple. Her theory was to say that if you got an opinion that is different from the general opinion, you will have the tendency not to express it. You stay in silence because you're afraid of expressing an opinion that is different from the general opinion. And the traditional media were contributing to filter this, to avoid that minority opinions are expressed in public. But the fact is that social media have the tendency now to break this spiral of silence, because you're going to find in social media always some people that are going to share your opinion, even if you have the craziest opinion. And we have plenty of examples nowadays with the famous virus that is COVID. You will always find someone that say, no, this virus is not existing, for instance, and that is going to confirm your opinion, and you're going to express this opinion now. You will not be ashamed anymore to express this opinion, because you have the feeling that you are not alone anymore. And one, according to me, of the greatest consequences of the social media is that this minority opinion that before were secret are now publicly expressed, which lead to the existence of new opinion leaders that are very influential in the mediatic space. And these new opinion leaders are the ones that are sharing these minority opinions. And the social media contributing to spread these minority opinions. Well, how can we, so that was a sort of I try to make a presentation of the main problem that we encounter now with the social media in electoral period. And now I will present some solution, suggestion, the recommendation that have been elaborated by the Council of Europe. So the question is, how can we control social media while respecting the freedom of speech? Obviously, we don't want to have a too important or severe control of the social media that would constitute a resistance for the freedom of speech. So the first one that we're going to see is a measure recommendation to improve the information and control of algorithms and their consequences. We talked about that before. A first element that we should have is to establish an appropriate level of transparency of algorithm. But the question is, how can we, algorithms are so complex, and I don't have an answer for that, but how can we make algorithms transparent and understandable for the general population? Obviously, it's not by showing the code that we will make it understandable, but maybe there are simple way to explain algorithm to the general population so that it's made understandable with words. We should also label automatic account and actions so that once you're in front of a bot, you should be able to know, to identify, okay, this is a bot, I know that I'm in front of a bot. We should take measures and ask online platform to take measure to limit misrepresentation and spread of political disinformation. Last element, I'm surprised we did not talk about it, is that you should also give the possibility to the users to decide what type of algorithm they would like. You know, you're in front of algorithm, you know that you have algorithm, but you could have the possibility to say, okay, I want an algorithm that is giving me more this type of information, or I want an algorithm that is giving me the opportunity to be exposed to the diversity of opinions. So maybe giving an options to the user to say what type of algorithm he would like, he, she would like to use. And obviously promoting media education. Last thing, with regards, there were many recommendations, I'm just taking some of them. Now it concerns the information and the control of micro-targeting for advertisement. And here we should give information to citizens to know, okay, you have been micro-targeted and you should know why have I been micro-targeted, why did I receive this political advertisement? So that should be transparent, and you will receive an information say you've been targeted because you are that age, you're living in that place, etc., etc. So giving a granular information about why you receive certain type of advertisement. You should also give the possibility to a user to say, no, I don't want to receive any advertisement, political advertisement anymore. So giving this possibility to the user, opt out from political advertisement. And another suggestion, recommendation from the Council of Europe is to invite platforms to adopt code of conduct to avoid abuse of micro-targeting techniques. So in asking some media platform to say, define yourself some rules that you're going to apply to yourself to avoid this type of abuse of micro-targeting. Okay, that was for the first part, where we reviewed the main problem that we perceived in the use of social media during the electoral period, and a suggestion, recommendation coming from the Council of Europe, very concrete recommendation. Now for the second part, I would like to present you the voting advice application Smart Vielen. I don't know who is aware of voting advice application. You're aware of that? You're all aware? Like Valomat in Germany. So for me, this is really a good example of algorithm in electoral period. I will just show you the one that we developed in Luxembourg now for many years, and provide you some, reason why we consider it is a good instrument during the election. First of all, it has a great potential to improve the information gap that you got during the electoral period, in particular in complex electoral system, where, like in Luxembourg, where you can end up having to vote for more than 600 candidates during the national election. So no mind is able to process the program of 600 candidates. This really helps you for that. It can be particularly appealing for young voters that are familiar with this type of technology. It's equalizing the weight that each candidate or party has, because you're going to be visible only if the matching system is corresponding with your idea. It focuses on fact, so program, and not on sentiment, rhetoric, or beauty. It obliges parties to position themselves. So you may have 30, 40, 50 questions. One strategy of the parties and candidates is usually not to take position on certain issue. With that instrument, you are obliged to take position. If you want to be part of the game, you're obliged to take position. And it is used now because we develop it, I should say, we develop it with the Center for Politische Bildung, so the Civic Education Center, the LISER. It is used as a civic tool at school. So people, as young students, learn more about politics, about political dimension, but also about algorithm, thanks to this tool. And finally, it's an algorithmic system that is simple, replicable, and transparent. Well, here are some examples how our is working. So you've got a general question. You can respond yes, rather no. And then you can weight your answer if it is an issue that is important or not for you. Here I did it yesterday. I ended up with Fred Kolb, which is the, well, I just responded in a very random way. And randomly I ended up with Fred Kolb. They're laughing because this is the sort of light, extreme right identity party in Luxembourg. So you can see here you're matching with the different candidates. And here what is interesting is that you can have different representation of your positioning. Here you can see that we can position ourselves on a so-called smart spectrum on different dimensions. So like liberal society, economic liberalism, national sovereignty, welfare state. And you can see how your position is matching your position with the one of the candidate. But again, it's very interesting for learning more about politics. You're learning about what are political dimensions in politics. And here it's the possibility also to see question by question where you are situated compared to where the candidate is situated. So it's very transparent. Here is another illustration where we represent all the candidates on 2 dimensions. So we coded the different question or the relevant question only on 2 dimensions, and it was a European election, so we could code it on more European integration, less European integration, and then it is rather general notion of left, right on economical issue. And you can see the different, this is my position, and you can see how the different candidates of the same party are positioning themselves. And what is interesting to notice is that some parties tend to respond more or less exactly on the same way, but there are some parties where, for instance, this one, which is the conservative, the young party, or there, that have very different position in the same party. So we also did a survey, what's so-called post-electoral survey, where we asked, what are your main source of information during the election? And we wanted to know to what extent were you using this type of tool also during the election. And believe it or not, we got 1/3 of the population that say that they use smart filling. Okay, maybe according to me, it does not exactly correspond to the reality, but still there is a large population that is using smart filling. And also I want to show you a large part of the population that says that during the election, as a source of information, they read comments on social media, which is so when we think that RTL comments have no importance, or nobody's reading them, or the comments on the newspaper are not read, it is not true. People are reading them and they're using as a source of information. And then there are the typical other source of information, radio, tele, political program. I just wanted to show you, this is smart filling, that among the young generation, 65% of the young between 18 and 24 say that they're using this voting advising tool and the more we will continue, the more it's going to be used. And it is used more than television. So a simple voting advising tool that has been developed at the university played a fundamental role during the electoral period, which is nice, but at the same time is a big responsibility. And the older you get, the less you were using them. I will not go into the detail of the other media. So now I wanted to show some slides about the importance of this tool and who is using them and when they're using them. So the question, a preliminary question we have to ask ourselves is, when do you know how you're going to vote? At what moment do you know you're going to vote? And we see that a large amount of voters, around, if we're looking here at the 2008 election, 40% of the voters say that they know they're voting, what they're going to vote 1 week before the election. So until the end, they don't know what they're going to vote. And this is a tendency that is increasing. And there is also 10% that even when they go to vote, they say, well, I still don't know what I'm going to vote. Let's see once I'm going to vote. And we asked citizens, the question was, did smartphone help you to make your electoral choice? And we wanted to know, compared to the moment where you decided to vote. So 40% is the average said that it helped them to make the electoral choice. 40% of the users. I have to finish, okay. What shall I do? How much time do I have more?
Already over?
Okay, so I will stop. So just to tell you that it has a very important influence. It has also an influence in the way for the candidate. It has an influence when you have to select candidates as well. It had an influence on the parties you're going to vote. So 20% say that 20% of the users say that it encouraged them to vote for a party they did not plan to vote, and for the people that voted for candidates, it's even more. So a big important influence. So let me conclude on the lesson that we can derive from this different study. What could be a good algorithm? What should be the characteristic of a good algorithm in electoral period? We said before it should be transparent and easily understandable. It should be implemented by a trusted body, like academics or if it's public service media. So you should trust the body. Obviously, if it's developed by a corporation, you know that there are some interest behind. It should increase the visibility of different opinions, so it should help to be confronted to different opinions. It should decrease the visibility of misinformation and disinformation. And why not? It should promote deliberative interaction. We discussed about it. Maybe we can have a system of algorithms that promote deliberation, not by being bots, but by saying, for instance, look, maybe you should change your behavior once you're discussing, or having method that allow you to see if you're going to extreme way of interaction and having invitation to change behavior. But we should still keep a critical distance from it. And here I want to conclude with some Swiss scholar that develop tool like SmartVLN, and they say, okay, in the future, we can vote like that. We put our preference on the SmartVLN, and then we connect it with e-voting, electronic voting, internet voting, and then we vote directly. In Luxembourg, we also there's a team that is working on internet voting and to make internet voting secure. Once internet voting is secure, and then once you got SmartVLN, you could combine both, just enter your preferences and directly voting, and trust the system that is going to vote what is best for you. And here I say maybe we're going a bit too far away. We should try to keep a critical distance. Thank you, and sorry for being late.